The views expressed by our guests in the following video are solely the opinions of our guests and do not necessarily reflect the views and or opinions of the Ola 7 podcast show. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hello and welcome to another edition on the Sportlight with Yvonne Mangunda here on the Ola 7 podcast platform. And very excited because this is a platform that gives you other shows as well. You can look forward to the Ola 7 podcast show, obviously trending stories. You've got Life and Stuff, so many other shows that you can watch here on the platform. But today it is the Sportlight with Yvonne Mangunda. And on the show, we like to give you an insight into Zimbabwean sporting personalities, get to know who they are, where they've come from, and where they want to go. And last week was very exciting. We had representatives of Zimbabwean. Simbandoro was in the studio. He is the owner of Zimbabwean as well as the Secretary General Taurai Jani. This week we are shifting because we are in election season. The ZIFA elections are on next month, the first month of 2025. And I decided let's get into that phase where we talk to the candidates. And we talk to an aspiring ZIFA president. You could be looking at your next ZIFA president. I don't know. Only the people that will vote would decide for that. I have in the studio Mr. Marshall Gore. And I think if you are somebody who keenly follows Zimbabwean football, you would know this name. Know this name because of his alliance and connection with Zimbabwean players that were born in the diaspora. Welcome to the show.
Yvonne, thanks for having me.
You can't say Marshall without thinking diaspora players. Even though we're here to talk about your candidacy as ZIFA, you want to be a ZIFA president. Let's start from where it all began. Where were you born? Where were you raised? Was it local? If it was local, which schools are the schools?
Great. Well, I was born in Glenora 49 years ago. I was raised in Glenora, where I attended my early primary school up to grade 6. I was then transferred just down the road to Nettleton Primary School when we moved to Cranbourne. From Nettleton, I played football. I was the school captain for 2 years from 1986 and 87. If you recall 1986, that's when there was the World Cup in Mexico and Diego Maradona did his thing. That became my nickname.
I love how you say, if you recall, 1986, I hadn't even turned a year. I'm a November 1985 baby. But growing up in Glenora, I grew up in Highfield, but it's close to each other. And football was a part of our life in Highfield, playing in the streets. Did you have that same sort of upbringing of playing chikweshe, being in the roads, being in the streets, having a connection with football?
Yes, I did. I started organizing football actually in Glenora. At that time, I think I already was in charge of our local team, Matime Mara and I. And they got about 52-31 Paduze and High One Pepe. So at the ground, Paduze, it was new. That's when High One was actually commissioned in the early 80s. Saka, it was excited to have a football stadium just next door to Babarain. So I started actually, I was the captain of Team Yokuchikweshe. That's where it started. I was actually quite good at football as well.
I was actually quite good as well with Chikweshe, but I would never played. I was a cheerleader. This is why I would ride in the So they're adjusting, like you said, you grew up in Glenora, you're organizing these things, then now you move to Nettleton, and like you said, you still were involved in football. This is in school. Then what happens? What career path did you take after you finished school?
Well, I did my secondary school at Cranbourne Boys High. And I also played for the school team, for the under 16 actually. I didn't play for the first team. There was a lot of politics. But again, it was a setback which gave me my setup because just around Form 3, Form 4, I felt discouraged, dusted myself and took a walk into One Commando, where One Commando bullets were training. And I self-applied for a job as a part-time player when I was still at school. And after intensive trials of 6 weeks. Then they signed me as one of their young players potential. I was third choice goalkeeper when I started, but at some point I became first choice.
That's very bold. Have you always been a bold person? Because the place you're talking about, this is one commando. You can't just walk in and say, I want to be part of this environment, but you did.
Yes, like they say, your adversity at times is your university. You know, I was felt discouraged to see people that I felt I was better at them at football, playing for the school team. And you know, then days there was the Coca-Cola Cup. School football was a big thing. And to be deprived the opportunity to play for the school team, I felt at times if I was a weak person, I would have been destroyed at that time. You know, because I played for the under 16, played all the games. But first team, I was told I'm inadequate, surplus to requirements. But again, like I say, I molded myself up and I was courageous and went to join the army side as a part-timer. And Jerry Chidawa was impressed with my courage and resilience. And I was contracted before I even completed my O-levels.
So you are now with the club, and then what happens? What's the transition? What happened after that?
I played with them for, I think the first season I was literally on the bench, perhaps maybe as a third choice goalkeeper, but they'd seen my potential. But you know, when you're a journeyman also, you're told to put macons here and there to start to stay and clean up and understand. For me, I saw that opportunity as an experience to learn and understand. Back then, one commando, all the army teams were professional and semi-professional teams. We started at 9:30. There was a parade. I would go and Jerry would ask me when the soldiers had gone to parade to start assembling, putting my cone in Nemabora. I got to understand also football coaching methods at that level, and got to also understand administration, how the army teams, the discipline and everything. So that was fostered at that level.
So now because we're talking about you being there and learning all these things, but the progression after that, because we're taking people through your journey, your early life in football.
Yes, so there was progression, because when I was at one commando, I progressed quite well and ended up actually playing for the first team for a few games, which I played, I think the last season before I left. We traveled to Inkomo Barracks, traveled throughout the region actually playing, you know. So that was an experience also to understand the football life at a very young age. And the lucky thing at One Commando is that I was looked after quite well, because most of the players were quite senior to me, you know. So I was seen as the brother, the keeper, you know, and it was a good experience. But I was then assigned by my father, I think after when I finished my A-levels at Kosa, my father then assigned me to go to Goromons, to our area, to look after a family project, which he had started there. He gave me two options: go to industry or go and work back Kumusha on that family project, which I felt the opportunity to go back Kumusha was okay, because when I transitioned at first, because Goromons is closer, I kept on coming back to play my games because I was a goalkeeper, and Jerry would say, okay, if you don't train, you can still come. We need you on the bench this week. You could call me occasionally to come and still be with the team. But then I discovered when I was in Goromons that there was a gap of football development. There were so many social teams, there was no league. So at that time, I decided to gather myself with other colleagues in the area to form the Goromons Area Zone League, which was under ZIFA and affiliated. That was around, I think, 94, 95. So we formed that league. It started with 18 teams. It was very vibrant. And I was one of the board members of that league, or committee member of that league. I felt it had my print in it. It was very successful. We later had more teams wanting to join the league. We had a B team, a B league, and it was very successful. I organized, I was the chairman of the Independence Organizing Committee, the fundraising committee, with our MP, Herbert Murero at that time. Raised a lot of money from Marungu in the farms, and my businessmen and Amajuru, back Kwamsami, and developed a very good, efficient system of running football at Grassroots. Some of our trophies, we raised a lot of money, and they were thriving at Goromonza High. If you would come to our Independence, it was packed and overflowing.
But as you said, you were doing all this football stuff, but you've been sent home to do a project. So didn't that affect the work that you'd been assigned by your parent to go and do?
No, it didn't. I was creative because we also formed our team in Koromonzi called ZIFA, which joined the league. It was the only rural-based team in that league. So I then used the team to form a social enterprise. So the work we had to do at our plot, we used the players, and we started engaging other people, doing work for them, and also going into farms, contracting ourselves as labor, and also training and fulfilling our league fixtures whilst we were there. We raised a lot of money, enough to pay the players, and enough eventually to buy ourselves a truck and a tractor. We became productive. We were growing potatoes and tomatoes as a team, mostly living together as an academy, staying together, working together, playing together. And we were very successful at the team in that league. We finished 4th in that league, and we were the only rural-based team yekumusha. But it's
So I'm looking at this. This is I don't know if should we call it is it a manifesto? What is this? It's just a booklet to talk about.
Yeah, it's a booklet to introduce myself and my vision. It's not a manifesto.
So I'm looking at one of your 10 key priorities. You talk about investing in grassroots development. Does it date back to that time?
Yes, it does date back to that time, because remember, we were playing football. We did not have a pitch. We used the school football pitch. So the school then traded off with us. I was the team manager and player as well. So the school said, yes, you can use our pitch, but why don't you also help us to train our young players, the school team? So we then merged the two, community and education, So we started working collaboratively. First, we would train the juniors at the school team. And then after, when they finish, we'll have the local community home team to train. The two integrated very well. And the team also became very successful. We were very resourceful in raising money from the community donations, from the teachers themselves, the local business. I engaged them. My committee was full of all our 22 local business people. They sat in the committee. They contributed effectively. We had surplus of resources in our team. And I believe this is another model that people that are running academies, that are running junior football development, the community is the biggest resource. We know that grassroots football is not funded well from the Football Association, from the government, but we can be creative and innovative. And my model was a very good example of success through partnerships with local people.
But when you look at it like from a national point of view for fans, a lot of people found out about you during the time when we were having all these debates about integrating diaspora born players. What happened between that period, or what led to you migrating, and when did you migrate?
Well, I migrated in 1998 when my sister offered me an opportunity to go and study in the UK at that particular time. So that's when I decided to leave. But I left also when I'd left another legacy. I'd been involved in forming the Marsh East Division 3, which was formed by then. ZIFA wanted to expand the football pathways. So in Marsh East, we were asked to register our area zones, and they took the top 2 or top 3 teams from the area zones to form the new Division 3 Marsh East. So I was there that time. I helped the coordination of those leagues, and I also got involved in the organizing committee of the league at that level. So my involvement again in grassroots football and my track record of football stems back then. I'm not new into homegrown football in Zimbabwe. I'm a product of grassroots football. I've played at grassroots football. I played in area zone. I played in Division 3 actually, and I also played in Division 2. Then I left in 98 to go to the UK with an opportunity to go and study. I arrived there, to be honest, my interest was still clearly focused on football. That I took the scholarship thinking that I would go and find a football team to play. But it was very difficult. But I still played. I managed to play for a conference team in North London called Hendon Football Club. I stayed there for 2 years. And then when my university place came, I had to move to Middlesex University to stay there. And there again, I was to be involved with the school football team after being voted as the SRC president at the university. The first black SRC president at Middlesex University. I found myself again in the first team playing. They had a very good team, which played with some of the Premier Leagues, under 21 and reserve teams. I had a very good career with my good friend Kudazino. I think he was from Churchill. We met there as well, and we really enjoyed our football.
It's all nice, when you hear this biography, your involvement in football, but we all know when it comes to this period we're in, like election period, we know that it's not always about what you've done, your background, but it's about being able to sell your story. And how far have you gone in trying to sell the story to the people that get to vote?
Yes, thank you so much, Yvonne, for asking that question. Well, for me, I'm a firm believer that sometimes the best campaign program is your work and your track record. And I believe my work and my track record is the best campaign program. When Nelson Mandela came out of prison in 1994, there were elections in South Africa. After he left prison, in six months' time, they had elections. And Mandela didn't need to campaign. He just need to walk down the street, to walk into a stadium, people would follow. So I believe if you're a leader, you don't worry too much about campaigning, because your track record should speak for itself. But as for me, like the gap you have asked, I've been interfacing with all the regions. I can safely confirm now that I have had tangible interfaces with all the regions, the northern region, the eastern region, the central region, and to some extent the southern region. And I want to confirm that the turnout for my meetings with those regions was actually overwhelming, close to almost 100%, with all the board members standing up except for just a few.
But African football is very dirty, and clamoring for positions, obviously over the years, being a journalist, there are things you learn along the way. And what people say and what people eventually do are two different situations. We've seen a situation where you had a person like Nigel Mnyati, a football person that everybody knows about, and didn't get a single vote. So how do you as a candidate ensure that the conversations you are really do lead into you getting in power? Because obviously everything you're doing is because you want to be in charge, you want to be able to be the president and determine how Zimbabwean football goes in the coming years.
Yes, that's good. Actually, I don't want to be in charge. I want to serve. I want to support my country. I want to help my country. So that's a good, but you have highlighted that well as well. When I've gone to do my interface meetings with the regions, I have focused on delivering a presentation which outlines my strategy and my 10-point plan, and shared my vision with people. And I've done that in an illustrious manner that even now I'm still receiving a lot of messages of people who accept that my vision was well articulated. So it's now up to them, like you have said, but I believe I've done my part. Now I need to interface with the PSL clubs. I need to interface with the Women's Premier League. That's another program that is going to come. I believe before we go to an election, I'll have an opportunity to interface with every voter, face to face as a group, and also face to face. That's my strategy, and I'll focus on it, and I believe in it, and I trust also in the partners that are backing me. I'm not alone in this game. I have a lot of people that are behind me from abroad and locally as well. I've invested 25 years of my life in football development in Zimbabwe, and I've worked tirelessly to support my country even when I did not have the resources. I believe it's the right time for me now to put myself around. If I don't get elected, it will be a loss to the country, because my work speaks for itself, and I have delivered in a lot of projects.
But it's always, in any election, every candidate thinks you're the best candidate. But the issue of where do you stay and how do you factor in? Because we do know there was a constitutional amendment, and you have to have had stayed in the country in the past 2 years. Have you been in the country in the past 2 years?
I'm a Zimbabwean resident. I'm a Zimbabwean passport holder. I have a house in Zimbabwe. I have a business in Zimbabwe. I have a family in Zimbabwe, and I've stayed in Zimbabwe for a very long time, that my residence cannot be questioned. This year alone, I've spent a lot of time with my parents. My father was not well in March. I came here to attend to him, And eventually, I had to take him to Zambia for an operation, for a hip replacement operation, So the times I've left this country is either for business and it's either to attend at important family matters. I'm a resident of Zimbabwe.
But are you in touch? Because when I talk about being in touch, it's about you could know the issues from following the game, whether it's online or whatever, conversations with people, have connections with people who are in Zimbabwe. But can you safely say your ear is on the ground?
Yvonne, my ear is on the ground. I actually sponsor the Residency Soccer League in Goromonzi. I work with teams there tirelessly, and I do a lot of more projects. I am always around in the country. Last years, we've worked with more than 100 community football clubs and schools, donating footballs and football kits. I'm in touch more than some of the local guys that are here. I have a footprint in Zimbabwean football. Talk about the Warriors. How many times have we traveled and you have met me supporting the Warriors? Recently, in all the qualifiers, I hardly missed a game. I was traveling with the Warriors from here to go to games. So
but isn't it, because if I'm looking at it as a fan, and I'm putting myself here as a fan, I would say maybe it was part of your plan. You already knew you want to be a presidential candidate. So you are going out there so people see you, people notice the work that you're doing. You're traveling with the team. You're ensuring that people know Marshall Gore is on the ground.
Yvonne, I started traveling with the team in 2004 when Zimbabwe qualified for their first Africa Cup of Nations. I was there in Tunisia. I received the Zimbabwean delegation at Tunis airport when they arrived. No one had assigned me to do this. It was sheer volunteering. So I volunteered for my country at that level. Can you say in 2004 I was already eyeing to become a ZIFA president? No. The commitment that is in me is what has driven me to want to represent my country well and help my country. I'm coming in to help my country. This is not about me. This is about me coming now to support my country. In 2006, when Zimbabwe qualified for the Africa Cup of Nations, I was there in Ismailia and in Port Said supporting the national team. I mobilized funds from the UK to come and support the team. I was in touch with the technical department. I was in touch with the ZIFA logistics team. I was there also supporting with resources. We fast-track to move in 2017 when Zimbabwe signed a kid deal with Mafro. I facilitated that. I supported and put finance together with another guy called Francis to ensure that the deal would go. I've done a lot for my country, and I did this not because I wanted to lead. I did this because I'm passionate about football. First of all, I'm a Warriors fan, and I'm passionate about Zimbabwean football. I've done a lot for the country, and I think it's also important for me to share the experience and the knowledge and the global contacts that I have. At some point, they have to give in and help my country.
At what point did you decide you want to be ZIFA president? In what year can you say, this is when I realized I think I need to go back and I need to compete in the next elections?
I think I started having those feelings. Actually, I thought about it in March this year. I think I'm one of the first people who went out public to pre-state this. And this was perhaps maybe led by the suspension we had, because I felt that we had been greatly let down by the people that were in charge of our football. Not that I have got anything personal about them, but it was a tragedy that we lost funding from FIFA for almost 18 months. We were excluded out of the football world. Our players lacked exposure. They could not move or play in continental championships. Our national team could not play. So that pained me as a football fan, as a football person, as a football administrator. That put the dagger in my heart. And then I realized that it's time to save Marshall. Now it's time to save. It's time to confront all the mountains ahead. And it's time for me to be responsible. I have a great track record, CV, in football administration. I've worked as an advisor for the English FA on diversity matters. I've consulted for the Premier League, again, on racial equality and diversity matters. I have spearheaded a historic engagement of diaspora players coming to play for the national team, and not just coming to play, but delivering success. You remember the likes of Tendai Dariko, how they played a role for 3 consecutive AFCON qualifications, historic for this country. Recently, one of the boys who I worked not alone with many other people to encourage this project scored the goal that matters most, that has taken us to Morocco 2025. It has been an effort of a lot of people surrounding me, my colleagues at Team Zimbabwe UK, people like you also. You inspire me and you encourage me. A lot more people here that encourage me. I worked with Caps United in 2016. I came in as a consultant to support them to develop their website, media and digital technology, and eventually they won the league in that year, and they were very successful in the Champions League. Wherever I am, there is success. I worked with Charles Manucci, the boxer, and we won 2 world titles in the ABU. I am a sports person and I know my game, and now I've arrived.
Now you've arrived, but you have been embroiled in a bit of controversy in terms of your exact involvement in the integration of diaspora-born players, because there's a school of thought that sometimes there are deals happening in order for some of these players that are coming from the different leagues in the world finding themselves in the national team.
No, that's actually a smear campaign. I've never picked anyone to be in the national team. The players in the national team are picked by the coaches in the technical department. What we only do is to identify these players and then make them known to the Football Association. It's their responsibility to pick and call players for the national team. That's only the duty. I've only facilitated for the players to get passports. And then the rest is up to ZIFA if they want them. There's so many players, up to almost 20 players that I've facilitated to get passports. Some of them have never been called to the national team. And that's not my duty. My duty is to facilitate willing diaspora Zimbabweans that want to represent our national team, to talk to their families, convince them, sell Zimbabwean football to them. And the rest is up to ZIFA. I only work to facilitate the passport processes. I don't pick players to go into the national team. No, that's not my role. There are people that do that. Recently, Macaulay Bon, who I'm quite close to, was left in the national team because the coach felt it so that he did not need him. And that's not my responsibility to force players into the national team. I believe in transparency, and I also believe in respecting people's roles. And over the years, I've worked with different ZIFA technical departments. I've never had an issue with regards to forcing players into the team. I don't own those players. They're managed by different agencies. I'm not involved in any transactions. I am transparent, Yvonne, as you see me today.
So how do you benefit in this process of bringing players into the national team? What's the benefit for you?
Well, the benefit is the progress for my country. You have invited me for this interview because you know my good work. That's the benefit. This is the dividend of serving wholeheartedly. This is the dividend of nationhood. So many places. I've met presidents because of football. I've been to so many places. I've been helped by a lot of people. Right now, my campaign, 60% of the help is coming from partners that appreciate what I've done. The Bible said, a good name is better than silver and gold. That's what I believe in. And I will continue to live my life like that. I do not need to take what is not mine. All I need is to do the best for you, for everyone, and for my country. And I know there's God upstairs who will reward me for my good work. The Bible does not lie. God does not lie. And I've been rewarded now with all the people coming in. Car hire companies offering me cars. Insurance companies offering me products to deliver and sponsorship. Right now, as I'm speaking, I'm negotiating with a major company that actually want to sponsor the Women's Premier League. I did not give them a call. They have come to me. So many things are happening, Yvonne. For those that are faithful, for those that are good in their heart, God will always reward them. And I'm a testimony now.
You speak a very exciting story. You're very eloquent. Were you a public speaker in school? Where did you learn this? Because you've got the charm. I will say you know your story. You're selling your story. What do you attribute that to?
Well, it's self-drive and determination. I'm also educated. I hold 3 diplomas, 1 degree. I'm actually in the process of doing my MBA. So I've worked hard, education-wise also. And I've got a very good CV of professional work aside from football. I've managed corporate companies. I was MD for Tagmore Petroleum Services, a big company in South Africa that had a footprint in South Africa, Swaziland, and Malawi, and Lesotho at some point. You know, when COVID came, we had opened here in Zimbabwe. It was going to transform the petroleum industry in this country. I have corporate experience. That's where I've learned also some of my skills. And by all means, in addition to this, I also serve in church. I'm the chairman of the BOT of my church. And I've also done a diploma in Bible studies. I read my Bible every day, and I trust in God for everything that I do, that let him establish my plans. And here I am today. And thank you for inviting me for this show.
Okay. Okay. I hear your story. Let's get to your key priorities. You talk about his 10 key priorities. I'm going to read them out. Invest in grassroots development, infrastructure improvement, creating talent exposure, professionalize our leagues, coaching and staff development, introduce fan engagement, grow women's football, deliver on corporate sponsorships, bring international competitiveness, introduce governance. Your 10 key priorities are very, very important and things that we need.
Thanks, Yvonne.
But how realistic is it in the Zimbabwean context? Because we've had situations where people sell a good story, and then the work on the ground and the obstacles that are there. You say you have your ear on the ground. Of the 10 key priorities, what would you think will probably pose the biggest challenge that you have to overcome?
I think the first one, which I've put as priority, which is investment in grassroots football. I believe we have a deficit of investment in grassroots football. We have not, over the last 20 years, invested a lot in grassroots football. A lot of grassroots football now is in the hands of private academies of well-dedicated people that are not even recognized. Majority of them are not going to vote in this election. And these are the players that are producing the players. These are the players that produce the SE's Academy, that produces the likes of Kama and many others. So I believe that these people need also help. The solution is to set up a grassroots football development fund. That fund should be funded by some of the development funds that come from FIFA. It should put in a pot. We should also talk to politics. We should talk to government to also contribute. We should talk to the private sector. I come from a private sector background as well. I know how to talk to the private sector. I've already started talking to even to banks in this country that are waiting that as soon as I come, we have proposals submitted to address infrastructure deficit in our schools. Our schools are the golden goose that produces the golden egg. They've been for long neglected. We need to go there and work with NAF and NASH and ensure that they're incorporated in those development plans. We need to synchronize our area zones, make sure that the pitches are playable. We need to work with our regional leagues. Our regional leagues are beckoning for support. We have so many teams that are affiliated in Division 1, Division 2. They drop out due to lack of resources. This cannot continue to happen under our watch. The Grassroots Football Fund will also get funding from my corporate partners abroad. They are willing to come, so as long as the leadership is solid, transparent, we can attract finance. Tanzania has done it. Their league is thriving now, almost matching, if not surpassing South Africa. The North Africans have done it. Why can't we do it? We are not different from them. After all, we have a lot of resources in this country. I'll be engaging with politics. I've already started that. Talking to politics. I've met Minister Mtulingwe on several occasions and brought these issues. I also met Jacob Mfume last week, and I hinted to him that we need a solid plan. The local authorities must come on board, government must come on board, everyone must come on board. We can do it. Surely we can. We have the resources. What we need now is the ideas. I have the idea. The Grassroots Football Development Fund is the center of grassroots football development, where money will pour in. We'll talk even to the Mtapa Fund. We'll convince government with tangible projects and benefits and dividends of saying that when you invest into football, you alleviate poverty in communities. Clean bill of health. It's an example. We'll match other models that have been functional in countries like Senegal. We can do it. It's now time for us to believe again. And
it's time for us to believe again, but we have a reputational risk because our sport doesn't really, especially Zimbabwean football, the brand isn't a sellable brand at the moment. It isn't a brand that corporates would be rushing to come on board? What makes you different if you're the leader? What would ensure that you bring all this that you're saying with the reputation of football as it is right now?
No, the issue of reputation is not with football. The issue of reputation is with the administrators that were in football. If we take out that rot and bring people who are transparent, look at the PSO when the likes of Chris Banda were there when it first started, how it flourished. So you need the right people in the right places. I'm not saying the guys that are in the PSO now are not doing a good job. My brother Kenny and also Respectable for Nigeria are trying their best. But what I think the Football Association need a new pilot in the cockpit, someone with a clean track record, someone who's not embroiled in any past embezzlement of finances, someone who comes with a clean track record, transparent. If he comes into that office, he can deliver. He can invite the corporates to come back in. I've already convinced corporates to do a lot of things. You know, there's times when we actually managed to arm twist one of the biggest companies in this country to pay for the salary of the national team coach. We can do it, but it's the reputation that attracts money, not a dirty reputation. Money needs peace and transparency. If you don't have that, you won't attract corporates. I believe I have a good track record, not me alone, and some of other administrators. If we come together, then we can address these problems. We can, and I have a plan.
Here you talk about diaspora engagement. Engage with the Zimbabwean diaspora to tap into their expertise, experience, and financial support for the development of football in our country. Let's talk about the diaspora, because that is obviously something in Zimbabwean sports that we're still trying to deal with, how to handle, whether it's the talent coming from the diaspora and integrating it. How are you planning to work on this? And the first question will obviously be, how important is it to tap into that diaspora market, whether it's the fans, it's the players, it's the corporates?
Well, it's important because I believe that the diaspora is power to transform a country. As we speak right now, this country is hinged by diaspora remittances, which stand at around 1.8, if not 2 billion every year. So there is money in the diaspora. So we just need to ensure that our football taps into that. I'll give you another very good example. I'll give you a simple example, and I'll give you a more detailed. A simple example. Look at Jordan Zamora. He came to play for the national team. He has set up a football foundation now. He's going to invest loads of money in grassroots football development. That's another good example of Ingenyi. Imagine if Jordan has been shut down. What would have happened? We would have lost not just a player, but also an investor in grassroots football. I was talking to Tendai Dariko a few days ago. He also wants to set up his own foundation and is thinking about doing the same. You know, the list is endless. We have these guys coming back to invest in the countries. And then you have the likes of Marshall. Not so much cash, but with great ideas. Who can establish, work with the grassroots leagues, support them, come back, help teams to arrange sponsorship for them. Look at Maningi FC. The owner is in the diaspora, but he's running a thriving team here. You know, so we need to allow the diaspora to be involved in football, not to exclude them, because there is potential and there is strength. So many teams, even I understand Wangu Mazodze as well is a product of the diaspora. He's managing to support his team. So we cannot afford at this moment to shut out the diaspora. We have a lot of sponsors, companies from the diaspora. I've been talking to Remitly, for example. They're interested in supporting the national team. They're interested to work with the PSL. I've been talking to a company that I represent, Grip Active Sports. They're interested to work with teams in our PSO. They're interested to support the women's PSO. This is the strength of the diaspora. And I believe Dynamos and Highlanders, if they are to have replica shirts in the diaspora and here, the replica shirts in the diaspora would sell more numbers than locally because of the economies of scale. So I believe it's important to educate our clubs to tap into the diaspora, and it's important also for our football association to have a policy of the diaspora. We already have a diaspora policy from government. Government has spearheaded under the vision of 2030 for diaspora engagement. Why can't football do it? This is where we are lacking.
So I'm very keen and interested in this. Obviously, the bias because I'm a woman. I go to your number 6 priority. You talk about equal opportunities, ensure that women's football receives equal attention and resources as the men's game. Is this feasible?
Yes, it is. It is feasible, and we can do it. Look at the model in Europe now, when you see that teams are match funding and doing much more better. And I think women's football is in a good place because FIFA actually is extending grants to actually support clubs. So you can actually be paid to run a thriving women's football league. There's money waiting for us to do that. I think many clubs, the women's PSO just received their first grant from FIFA to go to clubs and support them. So the initiative is there. What we need now is to also come up with local mechanisms of enhancing women's football to be taken seriously at school. If you go to a lot of prime schools, maybe in the ghettos and also in the rural areas, you find that you have a men's only football team, and girls are relegated to playing netball. But no, we should encourage even our schools. We should talk to NAF and even the tertiary institutions to ensure that there's an equilibrium balance in terms of developing and talent nurturing. Girls football can also pay. Look at the Zambian player, who is now the most expensive player. Who knows, in 2 years' time, we could have a Zimbabwean being bought by one of the European teams as the most expensive player. I believe we have the talent here. We've been ignoring it. And I think there's the notion we all always do and fall short of to relegate that football is a sport for those that are just marginalized, that if they're not good at school, then we should look at them going to play football. But no, we must take football as a curriculum, as a profession. And we must also support people children that are good at school to continue with scholarships. We need to discuss that. Right now, I was talking to the University of 92. They want to extend scholarships to our league, including the Women's Premier League, for girls to come and study. We need to talk to clubs about this. We need to open the partnerships. So here I am, bringing this and avenues for everyone to benefit. This is what I think the diaspora is also good at, creating good partnerships.
I think to people at home, you can tell the skepticism. It's not because it's anything against you, but it's because my experience in football is people will say a really good story when they're campaigning. So your story is a very good story. You go through this book, you get an idea of things that we want and things that you're planning for that are good for our game. But you have your ear on the ground. And you know the current situation in our sport, the allegiance, the dirtiness, the everything. My question will be, why would you want to get involved? You've got all these connections, you've all these things that are happening. There's always that risk that you miss your reputation in the process.
No, yes, Yvonne, you're right. And thank you for saying that. You're not the first person who has said that. A lot of people have been saying that as well to me. But I believe you can be clean in a dirty place. It's possible to do that. Integrity is my foundation. I was raised up well, and I believe in integrity. Let me give you an example. In 2019, we had a trip of a development side of 23 young football players from the UK and 7 officials. We traveled on a tour of Zimbabwe from the UK to come and play here. We organized that tour. The budget for that tour alone was stretching up to about 70,000. When we started it, we had no penny. But I worked hard with my colleagues in Team Zimbabwe UK, Thomas Tomiki, Farai Mchunguma, Wellington, and a lot of other people that were involved. We were able to speak with corporates. And within 2 weeks, we had got Kenyan Airways coming in at half price to give us air tickets. We had Zimbabwe Tourism Authority in the UK supporting us to book our accommodation in Mashiko. We had another volunteer coming in, Shanyai, a tour company, securing our accommodation in Mount Pleasant and a coach for us to use here. So these things can be done. I'm not just saying things that I cannot do. We did that trip. It was so exceptional. We were received well by the Minister of Sports that time. We actually went to Mutapa office to actually meet with the Vice President. It can be done. Our ambassador, Ken Okatsande, he helped us. He was key and pivotal in writing letters to support us in all the initiatives that, because we had a good track record. We received all the funding we needed. Within 10 days, we had it and the trip was facilitated. So I speak from an informed position. I speak from an evidence-based position. I am a product of corporate support, and I believe that we can unlock money from our banks. Already we have Nedbank supporting our gems. We also had Nedbank involved in supporting Zok with the Olympic team. The corporates are willing, but are we clean? We need a clean administration. Money will flow. I can guarantee you that.
So if elected, first 100 days, what would be your most immediate priorities at ZIFA right now?
My most immediate priority would be to bring unity, to reconcile people. I know an election can be very divisive. We've seen it in the past that soon after the election, the board members are going after each other. So my first priority would be to unite people, unity of purpose, bring everyone together. Even those candidates that had good manifestos, bring them together again, sit down with them and ask them to contribute to the development of our football. We can only break through if each and every one of us is involved. We also need the fourth estate, the press, to reconcile and to focus on churning news that brings investment. Sometimes we destroy ourselves by also portraying the bad image, the bad image about our institutions to the detriment of support from corporates. I will start also by again making sure that there is a good relations between the Football Association and the regions. What I'm discovering from my trips at the moment is that there's a lot of disconnection. But I'll make sure that we bring things together, we create a pathway and a model of working together where everyone is accountable. If we are going to receive money from FIFA, I'll ensure that before that money is distributed, all the key stakeholders, the 78 key stakeholders that will vote in the election, will come, look at the budget, look at the priorities, and work most importantly to address things together. And lastly, on that note, one other important thing, I am fully aware that there are a lot of debts that are owed by the Football Association because we have an NCA now. A lot of them have not come to light, but I'll also engage our government to find how we can resolve the debt and find the best ways of debt financing. We'll also talk to people that understand finance and see how they can help us to consolidate maybe one loan to deal with our debts, and then we can start operating, servicing that loan. But we need government support to also deal with those matters. We need to work closely with FIFA. We still need help to live. We've had an NCA, 18 months of suspension and almost another 1.5 years with a normalization committee. It's not going to be easy to take off. We need FIFA also to continue to support us more than the other associations that are fully established to ensure that we can make the right steps. I believe I can do it, and I believe I'm the right person to deliver on this.
How do you deal with resistance as an individual?
Well, I have creative diplomacy. I'm calm and collected. I know how to negotiate. I'm a negotiator. I work with people in the organizations that I've run, in the organizations that I've led. I've worked with a lot of people from diverse backgrounds in Team Zimbabwe UK. We had a lot of diversity in it, politically, religiously, but I was able to stir people to unite on one common purpose. I believe I'll strongly be able to bring people together. Sometimes it's how you do it, and sometimes it's also you need to listen to others as well. It's not going to be about me, but it's about giving other people also an opportunity to contribute and to share ideas. We'll hold consultation forums. We'll invite the press. We'll invite other key stakeholders. We'll work closely with Sports and Recreation Commission. They're an arm of sports. We need them. They have a lot of great people with a lot of ideas. People forget also that they're a sports regulator. They are part and parcel of us. We build a relationship with them.
But the reason I ask this question is because you've got this laid out. But life is not that simple, that everybody toes the line, that everybody gets to understand your vision and want to flow with your vision. So if elected, how will you deal with resistance? Resistance to your policy, resistance to you as an individual. Because like you're saying, we're coming out of a campaign. Each and every person has their preferred candidate. And if you're then in power, how will you deal with that?
Like I said to you earlier on, I allow broad-based consultation. One of the other things that creates resistance is then when you are elected as a leader and you become unilateral in all the decisions you make. I'll make sure that the board that is working with me are in sync with me. We'll identify each other. We'll hold a workshop and go away and find each other and understand each other. We'll have a team away day first of all before we even go into office. We need to understand each other, And then after that, we will build the committees that are required to support the Football Association. We'll identify the right talent. We'll do it in such a way. When you get the right people, you have less problems. You are most likely to have a lot of challenges if you've got the wrong people in wrong positions. We'll make sure that the thematic committees that are required to support our administration, we put people who are well articulate in carrying out their objectives. I believe the challenges we faced in the past is having people in positions that are not articulate or having people in positions where they are not strong. We'll have to make sure we build a robust team and build it on the basis of transparency and also on the basis of competence. And also, I will be tough if it means I have to exercise my authority for the benefit of Zimbabwean football. I will do that. I'll also not be going to be a pushover, but I'm a great negotiator and I come with peace and I hope I'll be able to deliver this. I trust I will and I believe in myself.
So let's go back. Let's talk about you as an individual, forgetting about the presidential campaign and all that. What does Marshall Gore like doing?
Interesting. You've asked the right question. We have a farm in Goromonzi. I'm doing cattle farming at the moment. We're on the verge of making it commercial now. So I like spending a lot of time at the farm. I'm lucky that our farm is not far. I live in Zimbabwe Park and the farm is in Goromonzi. So when I'm not involved in the day-to-day city hustles, I go to the farm, I go there and I'll be looking after my cattle and doing a lot of errands at the farm. There are a lot of projects that we are doing. And I also come Kumusha where they're building the Kunzu Dam. So at the moment, we are also looking at seeing how we can benefit from that. And I'm also working with the local organizing committee that are talking to the relevant ministries to see if people that are affected, how they're going to be displaced. So I'm involved in that work as well. And most importantly, I'm also involved in church a lot. So I like going to church with my parents to our local AFM church in Zimbabwe Park. I enjoy that on a Sunday to go there. I like eating out. And I like watching football. I'm a Chelsea fan and Cape United watching football. I like that as well, going to local stadiums. Yesterday I was in Gweru. I went after the meeting. I went to see the Shesham Juniors training. I spent about 2 hours there with the youngsters seeing how the academy is working. I also left and went to another stadium. I'm forgetting the stadium in Gweru.
Did you see my reaction when you said I'm a Chelsea fan?
I saw it.
If you had said that at the start of the interview, I would have just said, let's shut it down.
I saw that, Yvonne. Sorry.
I'm one of those people that don't like Chelsea. If I can declare it. I know I've got Chelsea people watching.
I follow your page though.
I'm very sorry. I know I'm a Newcastle supporter. I know my husband is Arsenal, so I have a bit of an allegiance to Arsenal. But Man U and Chelsea, I just...
So who are you then?
I remember the time when, there was a time when Nana drove by ACN and all of them were Chelsea. Yeah. There was a time I said to myself, I keep supporting Newcastle, but Newcastle is never in the championship race. I wonder what it would be like to support a team that's in the championship race. And I thought, should I move to Chelsea? I couldn't change. I remember when Manchester City started really winning, I thought, maybe I should go to Manchester City. I just cannot move from Newcastle. Yeah. But at the same time, I just don't like Chelsea. And and Manchester United, I'm sorry, Man U supporters. I know you guys are going to come on the page. It's okay. Let's talk about it on the page.
Honestly, Newcastle is a good team. I think they're coming up now, But I think you need to change your manager. With all that money. Come on.
Okay. I see that. I might drop. I see that.
Okay.
But besides that, what would you... Okay, besides football, yes. What other sports do you like?
Boxing. I was a boxer. I'm actually a registered boxing promoter here in Zimbabwe. I'm one of the few registered boxing promoters.
You have so many layers. I feel like I'm peeling an onion, and when I think I'm at the center, then something is peeled again.
Yeah. I like boxing. I'm a boxing promoter, actually. We have a boxing stable in Chitungwiza, which we're supporting, and I enjoy that. I worked with Charles Manucci. I've worked with former British heavyweight boxer Derek Chisora, a good friend of mine. I introduced the Zimbabwean brand within his setup. Another thing, again, that which I did very well, really, to market the country. When Derek fought against David Haye, a big fight, I made sure that he had the Zimbabwe bed and the Zimbabwe flag on his shorts.
Because the reason why I asked this is you give very serious vibes, like you're let's work, let's do the work, let's do this. You have time to just unwind and just forget about all these things, because you talk about different portfolios outside football. You've mentioned different things that you also do. So did you get that time to unwind? And then when you were answering my question, you did indicate live in Zimri Park. So let's clarify that.
Yeah.
Where do you stay? If you stay in Zimbabwe, do you stay outside the country? Where does Marshall Gore stay?
I stay in Zimbabwe, but I have properties in the UK. God has blessed me with properties in the UK, but I stay in Zimbabwe. And I occasionally visit the UK.
How long has this been happening? You staying there?
My relocation started in 2015, I think. It started in 2015 when we started Power 11.
Because for me, that's the key thing. Because
Listen,
when I saw that,
we started Power 11 Football Academy, which is our academy. Very good academy. You know, I believe we're one of the best. I think Real Betis and them are better than us. We have Power 11 Football Academy in Rua, and we've invested a lot of money in the academy. And over the last 5 years, I think we've taken, about 4 or 5 players on scholarships. So I'm a football junk. You know, I sometimes even go and train, play football. I still play, actually. You know, like 5 aside and 7 aside. I am a boozer. I still also play. You know,
because you know when that amendment was made about living in the country, you were the first name that came to mind. I said, this guy's been campaigning, he's been doing all this, he's made it public knowledge that he wants to be president. Now all of a sudden they put this, so he's not going to be able to compete. So even when I saw you still continue with the campaign, I still had questions to say, why does he continue doing that when he doesn't live in the country? So is it maybe your your connection to the whole situation with the diaspora integration of the players and Team Zimbabwe and the diaspora that made people think you physically don't stay here?
Listen, I think you've asked me very good question. That what do? I like traveling, you know. So I'm lucky that I've also worked hard. I like traveling, so sometimes I do travel quite often. You know, I even traveled to the 4 Nations tournament. I was there in Malawi. You know, spend time. I went to Uganda. So I like traveling a lot. So you find that I do travel quite often. And I believe that we're living in a global world now, that many people also do travel to get the exposure that you need, you know. And also some of the assignments I do with the companies. Like right now, I'm the Africa representative for Grip Active Sports. You know, I'm helping to introduce their brand into the continent. So that means I need to travel a lot. I've been to Zambia, I've been to Malawi, I've been to Kenya, and quite recently, I think I'll be going to Swaziland again to meet football teams there and everything. So it's also the nature of my job that does not allow me to stay in the country for a very long time, especially the assignment with Grip Active. That one, imagine I'm responsible for growing the brand in Africa, and I've only started with Southern Africa. I'll move to East Africa, I'll move to West Africa, to Central Africa. I was talking to Moses, TP Mazembe's son, to Moses Katumbi, the son of Moses Katumbi. Moses, you were saying, Marshall, I've invited you to come and watch our games. You haven't been here. After he's sponsoring me with the ticket, asking me to come to Lubumbashi and watch his team. I haven't been able to that. I was invited by Wanderers to Malawi. I went because the 4 Nations was happening. I wanted to also support my Warriors on the same ticket. I did it, and I was actually invited to address the Malawian PSL AGM meeting when I was there. met Pasua and all the other guys promoting Zimbabwean football. And also lucky to have the contacts that allows me to do this, Yvonne.
When do you get time to breathe? Like, when do you breathe? Do you have family? I didn't ask you that question. Like, and that's a very personal question. I'm hoping it's not a controversial question, because you don't have like wives all over the place or girlfriends of like, how come you didn't mention me? But what's your family situation like? Are you married? Are you single? Do you have kids? What's the situation?
Happily married with a son called Felix, who I love so much, you know, and I enjoy. I think also what helped a lot is I had time to do a lot of things with my family. You know, there was a period when I was not fully involved in a lot of all these things, you know, but now I've reached a time now where I can now have time for myself to develop myself professional. Like I told you, 49, turning the big 50 next year. It's time for Marshall now. It's time for Marshall to be also Marshall. I'm that age of my life. The next 10 years defines me, my legacy. And I believe my calling is football. And God has called me to live a football. I've transformed lives, Yvonne. I can't talk about stories in football. The players I've helped, the kids I've inspired. A lot has happened in my life. But also, I've had good people that have mentored me. My brother, Farai Gore, who's my older brother. He's the one who actually twisted me to be involved in football. He's been a pillar to me. He's done also, he's actually also an unsung hero. He's done a lot of other stuff that if you had to bring him to this program, you would also find that this is a family thing that runs into the family.
So what does the wife say? Because if I was a wife to somebody aspiring to be a ZIFA president, because of the stories I see in the media, I would be like, do we really need to get into this?
Like I said to you, I am a Christian, and I do my best to live according to the precepts and the principles enshrined in the Bible. So I live my life the best way I feel God is happy with it. And I think my discipline comes also from my very strong Christian background. At times I actually preach in church. I've done a diploma in Bible studies. And who knows, if football does not utilize me, where could I end?
So, very insightful. Like I said, it is ZIFA election season, so we'll try as much as possible to bring you a presidential candidates to get an idea of what they are promising to do for a game. We all understand we have a lot of issues in our Zimbabwean football, and so many things that we feel like needs to be sorted out, including the biggest thing is the whole issue with the stadiums and playing outside the country. Before we go, is there anything, I always like to ask my guests this before you go, to say, is there anything you feel, I wanted to speak about this, but she didn't ask me?
Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I think what I wanted to say is that I'm appealing to the football stakeholders to use the authority they have to transform our football by choosing the best leadership that we require this time. Our football has suffered a lot, Yvonne. Our football need another chance. So this is the opportunity we've had. And I also want to appreciate some of the work that the NC have done under very difficult circumstances to deal with the matters. Very small team, but they've done their best. So now I'm appealing for our football stakeholders to make sure that they thoroughly scrutinize us, the candidates, and ensure that they make us accountable before we come into office. They scrutinize us and ensure that they get the best person into the office. Even if I'm not successful, which I don't think will happen, I'll still be involved in football. I'll work with whoever is going to be elected. I'll support them. Remember, I've already for the past 25 years been involved in football. Like I said, we are in 2024 now. This time in 2004, I was in Sfax in Tunisia, supporting the Warriors, not looking for a post, but serving my country.
There you heard it. Not all of you will have a chance to get an opportunity to lend your hands on this, but I'm hoping that today you got an idea of what he is promising for the Zimbabwean game. You're obviously on social platforms. They can look for you and follow your journey.
Yes, they can go on my first Facebook page, Marshall Gore. I've got two pages. One is Marshall Gore. The other one is Comrade Marshall Gore. So I distinguish the two of them. But they can follow me. There's a lot of content and a lot of information. And I'm also willing for people that want to talk to me generally. I'm on a consultation mission. My door is also open to speak to football clubs, to speak with other key stakeholders, even the key stakeholders that don't have a vote. They're still valid. I want to talk a lot with the guys that are running our academies. I have a passion for them. And I believe that the next election, the guys that run academies should be given an opportunity to also put a vote in football. They've contributed tremendously in this country. And I want to wish also all the other candidates that are contesting the best of luck. It's not about anything else, but it's about the best intention for Zimbabwean football. I wish them well.
He talks about, he says leading Zimbabwean football into a new era. Marshall Gore on the show to give us an insight into his candidacy. And the show is open. Any candidate that feels, I want that platform to be able to talk to Zimbabwe and sell my story, very open. We have no side. We're not taking sides. You come, you sell your story, Zimbabwe then realizes and picks. And obviously we all can't vote, but we can have an idea on who the best candidate, the best person to take us through the next phase of Zimbabwean football is. Until the next time when I bring you another big sporting personality, make sure that you keep following me on social media, Yvonne Mangunda, on all platforms. We can continue this conversation. We can discuss what you thought of Marshall Gore as a candidate, as an individual. Until next time, goodbye.
It's the little things that make us giants in our industry. We put in that extra mile of service so your car can go that extra mile of performance. Our aim is to make our stopovers feel like home. Giant Petroleum. Limitless energy.